The water is warmer than it needs to be. You notice that first, not the message on the counter, not the phone screen still lit face up beside the sink, just the water, running longer than one mug requires. You turn a single coffee mug under the stream again, though it was already clean. Somewhere behind you, the phone buzzes a second time. You know who it is without looking. You know what she asked without looking. Dinner. Tonight. Nothing complicated, she said. Just the two of you, like it used to be before it stopped being like that. You dry the mug. You set it in the rack next to 3 others that are also already clean. The reply you send takes 4 words and 11 seconds. Not tonight. Sorry. Tired. You do not open the conversation again after that. You put the phone face down, which is a small motion, a wrist twist, nothing anyone would notice if they were standing in your kitchen. But it is also a decision, and decisions like this one have a shape, even when they're this small. You have made it before. You will make it again. Tonight, it just happens to be her. Outside, past the window over the sink, there's a gate at the side of the house, the one that leads to where the bins are kept, where nobody really goes except to take out the trash or bring in a delivery too big for the porch. It used to swing on its own weight, used to click into the latch with a sound so satisfying that for a while, years ago, you'd close it twice just to hear it. Lately, it doesn't click. Lately, you have to lift it slightly on the hinge and push, and even then it catches, and you've stopped noticing that you catch it every single time, because catching it has become what the gate does now. That's just how the gate is. You don't think about the gate while you're drying the mug. You have no reason to. It's not connected to anything. It's a gate. 3 weeks earlier, a friend from your old job, the one who used to sit 2 desks over, the one who once drove 40 minutes at midnight because your car wouldn't start in a parking lot, sent a message that said simply, "It's been a while, want to catch up?" You read it standing in a grocery store aisle, cereal boxes at eye level, a stranger's cartwheel squeaking somewhere behind you. You typed yes, definitely, let's find a time. You meant it when you typed it. That part is worth sitting with. You meant it. You were not lying. You were doing the thing you do, which looks exactly like intending, which feels exactly like intending, and which somehow, almost every time, fails to become a plan. 3 weeks is not long. 3 weeks becomes 6 without either of you agreeing to it. Nobody decided anything. That's what makes it hard to point to. If someone had asked you directly, "Do you want to keep this friendship?" you would have said yes without hesitation, would have meant that too. But nobody was asking you that question in the moment that mattered, which was a Tuesday evening when the message said, "What about this weekend?" and you looked at it and felt something close and small in your chest, something that had no name you'd have used out loud, and you set the phone down and told yourself you'd answer later when you had more energy for it. You always plan to answer later when you have more energy for it. The strange thing, and you'd deny this if someone said it to your face, is that you have energy for other things that same evening. You have energy to reorganize a drawer that didn't need reorganizing. You have energy to watch 40 minutes of something you won't remember by morning. The energy isn't gone. It's routed somewhere else, toward anything that doesn't ask something of you that has a person's face attached to it. There's a version of you that would call this being tired. There's a version of you that would call it being busy, being an introvert, being someone who just needs their space, and there's nothing wrong with needing space. You might be thinking that right now, that this is simply what taking care of yourself looks like, that not everyone has room for constant closeness, and that wanting quiet isn't the same thing as pushing anyone away. That's a reasonable thing to think. It would even be true, some of the time, for some people. But notice, quietly, without needing to argue the point, the friend didn't ask for constant closeness. She asked for one evening. The message only needed 4 words back. The gate only needed a slightly harder push. And you gave it neither the 4 words nor the push, not because you lacked the strength, but because some other, older part of you had already decided, long before this exact moment, that the shorter path was to let it close on its own. At the side of the house, the latch has started rusting at the pin. You'd know that if you looked closely, if you crouched down the way you did once, years ago, when you first moved in and were proud of the place, and checked every hinge and seam like it belonged to you in a way that mattered. You don't crouch down anymore. You walk past it with the bin bag swinging from your hand, you catch the gate the way you always catch it now, and you go back inside without a second glance. Because it's still working, technically. It still closes. It just doesn't click. Somewhere in the version of this story other people would tell about you, there's a pattern they've noticed and never said aloud. Your brother mentioned once, half joking, over a holiday dinner, that you were hard to pin down these days, and you laughed it off, said something about being busy, and the table moved on to something else, the way tables do. He wasn't wrong. He also wasn't entirely right, because being hard to pin down implies effort, implies dodging, and what you do doesn't feel like dodging from the inside. From the inside, it feels like nothing at all. It feels like Tuesday. It feels like warm water on a mug that's already clean. You get better at some things by doing them so often you stop noticing you're doing them. This is one of those things. There was a version of you, once, who called people back the same day. You can still find traces of that version if you look. An old message thread with a cousin, dense with replies within the hour, plans made and kept without effort, without this current heaviness that shows up whenever a name lights up your screen. Something changed between that version of you and this one, and if you tried to find the exact moment, you wouldn't be able to. It wasn't a single event. Nobody hurt you badly enough in one afternoon to explain years of this. It was smaller than that. It was quieter. It happened the way rust happens, not from one storm, but from ordinary air sitting against metal, doing nothing dramatic, doing it constantly. You remember, if you let yourself, one particular week a long time ago, a small disappointment, the kind that barely qualifies as a memory. Someone not showing up when they said they would, or showing up but not really being there, distracted, elsewhere. It wasn't a betrayal. It wasn't even, at the time, something you thought about twice. But something in you filed it. Something in you took a note that said, this is what happens when you count on the click. Build a habit instead of catching things yourself, quietly, before they can disappoint you by failing to catch on their own. You did not decide this on purpose. Nobody decides rust on purpose. It just accumulates in the places where moisture is allowed to sit undisturbed. And closeness, real closeness. The kind that requires answering on the same day, showing up even when you're tired, saying I miss you before the other person has to say it first. Closeness is moisture. It gets into the hinge. It stays there if nothing wipes it dry. And your particular way of wiping it dry, without ever naming it that way, has been distance. Just a little. Just enough. Just the 4 words instead of the 10. Just the maybe next week that both of you know on some level means not really, not soon, maybe not at all. Here's a small visible thing. You have a habit, when someone gets too warm, too close, too present, of finding something to do with your hands. Refilling a glass that wasn't empty. Checking a phone that hasn't buzzed. It happened 3 days ago, when your partner, the same one you told, not tonight, sorry, tired, sat across from you at breakfast and said, out of nowhere gently, you feel far away lately. Is everything okay? And you felt your hand move toward the coffee pot before you'd even decided you wanted more coffee. You poured a cup you didn't need so you could have something to do besides answer the question honestly. She watched you do it. She didn't say anything about the coffee. She just waited, and when you didn't offer anything more than, yeah, just tired, work stuff, she nodded in the way people nod when they've decided, for now, not to push, because pushing has its own cost. And she has learned the way people learn about gates that don't quite close, that pushing on you tends to make you lean the other way. That's the part that would be hard to hear if you let yourself hear it clearly. The people who love you have started adjusting to the gate instead of asking you to fix it. They've learned the lift, the extra push, the way to get it shut without complaint. They do it so smoothly now that you might not even register it as a workaround. You might think this is simply what it looks like when people know you well. They don't take it personally when you go quiet. They give you room. They don't chase. And maybe some of that is true, and maybe some of it is also just exhaustion, worn smooth into something that looks like patience, because the alternative, naming it again for the 10th time and being met with the same "I'm fine, just tired," costs more than it returns. You are, by most outside measures, a good friend, a good partner. You remember birthdays. You send the occasional funny video with no caption, just the video, which is its own kind of reaching out, small, low risk, easy to send because it doesn't require you to say anything true about how you actually feel. You are capable of great warmth in short bursts, a real laugh, a real hand on someone's shoulder, a real "I'm glad you're here." But these bursts have a ceiling. Somewhere past a certain point of closeness, past a certain number of consecutive days of being fully reachable, something in you starts quietly making plans to be elsewhere. Not because you don't want the closeness, you do. That's the part that doesn't fit the simple story where you just don't care. You want it enough that thinking about wanting it for more than a few seconds becomes its own kind of unbearable. It would be easier, in a way, if you didn't care at all. Then the gate wouldn't need explaining. It would just be a broken gate, and broken things don't require anyone to feel anything about them. But you do care, and that's exactly what makes the maintenance schedule you've built so strange, if you ever stop to look at it honestly. You've become extremely good at loving people from a slight, sustainable distance, close enough that they don't leave, far enough that they can't fully reach the part of you that would actually need something from them in return. It's an efficient system. It has kept you from a certain kind of pain for a long time. It has also kept you, for the same length of time, from a certain kind of closeness that most of the people around you assume is simply available to them, the way it's available to everyone else in their lives, because they don't know about the gate. They only know it sometimes takes a harder push than it should. Tonight, hours after the message that said, "Not tonight," "Sorry," "Tired," you take the bins out again, out of habit more than need. And you reach the gate in the dark, and your hand finds the exact spot on the latch where you always lift before you push. A motion so practiced now, it happens before you've consciously registered the gate at all. It gives, the way it always gives. It doesn't click. It just closes and stays closed, because you know exactly how much force it takes, and you've stopped expecting it to take less. You stand there a second longer than you need to. Long enough to notice, for the first time in longer than you could say, that your hand did that on its own. Long enough to wonder, with no good answer arriving, how many people you have closed the same way, gently, competently, without a sound, certain the whole time that you were simply being careful with something that mattered to you.